follow us on all forms of social media. We would love to connect with you there. We are big fans of the Twitters and the Instagrams. Also, facebook.com/faithandwhatever. And if you have any questions or any email topic-worthy stuff that you would like to send over to us, whether it's questions on religion or just things you would like to know our opinion of, we've had some great interaction with some of you, our friends of the podcast, and so we would love to continue to interact and get to know the audience even better as you guys continue to get to know us better. So we're going to keep moving straight along here. Okay, Chris, I know you're a big fan of Telltale. And so this one is directly for you. And this is from IGN.com by Brandon Tyrell. First Telltale Batman details revealed, son. They are making a Batman Telltale video game. And so essentially we talk about all the time whether or not, mainly off camera, but whether or not the actions and the storyline really does matter, and if it's really a video game or if it's just kind of like a choose your own adventure video game
story.
And yeah, it's kind of like God's providence, but we're God in this case. And so, and this is what's kind of neat.
All Telltale games are like that?
Yes.
Pretty
much. As far as I know. I don't know any other ones. I mean, how many Telltale games have we played now, James?
Let's see. 2 seasons of Walking Dead. We're starting the Michonne season. We've played
Wolf Among Us.
And the one for Borderlands and Game of Thrones. So that's 6. I think that's all.
They just pick and choose these random stories. That's kind of
cool. Why would they do a Batman one? There's already some really good Batman games that you can actually play.
I don't know, but each
Those
night
Borderland games.
So here's the premise. Each night, Bruce Wayne chooses to change Gotham for the better. Gotham. The team wants to explore what the consequences are of the player's actions when decisions made as Bruce and the critical impact they have on his nightly crusade as Batman, and vice versa. So
I guess that answers my question.
So certain key situations will give the player the decision to approach a scene as Batman or as Bruce Wayne, with consequences for either side. So
I think that's awesome sounding.
I do too. I'm extremely into Telltale games.
They kind of explored that a little bit with the Game of Thrones game, right? Because you could make certain decisions as one of their characters, and it would affect what was going on with the other characters you were playing.
Yeah, it was my mission to get everybody in our family killed.
Yeah, and we did that extraordinarily.
I don't think that'd be too hard in Game of Thrones.
It was awesome.
If you killed your character, would you have to pick a new one? Like, he's dead.
Well, no, there was enough characters to push the story along because there's something like 5 characters.
Yeah, like 5 brothers or something like that.
And 1 sister. Yeah, and so and then with each of those characters, there was characters kind of surrounding them, and we were just burning bridges hard and just making the worst, most violent decisions
just
possible.
Selling out orphans and killing 5-year-olds. The game was pretty rad.
So, Chris, your complaint is that there isn't enough choice in the games, and they feel very cinematic.
Yes.
Okay, well, I've played some of the Batman games, and even though it's an open world, I kind of felt that about those games already.
That's part of why I don't own any of those games.
Yeah, I'm like, it's open world. Then mission starts, and it's like, okay, that's not open world anymore.
Yeah.
Like, which is probably true of a lot of open world / mission games, but it felt like that almost every time I entered a building. It was like, there's only one way to do this: one way in and one way out.
I mean, this is. To play devil's advocate, even though I disagree with Chris, I mean, the point Chris could make here is it's even worse than that when it comes to the Telltale games, because it's not even like you're playing through levels. It's more like you're playing through a visual novel. So take a novel, make it video, and then make it so you can make certain critical decisions here and there and change the mood of the conversation.
This is kind of interesting to me.
So boring.
Well, if you
it's
really
so
like,
much fun.
If you like a universe,
of the conversation.
If you like a universe and the story, and you just want more of it, they are well written, and their art style is cool. And
well, put it this way: when we the first time we played one of these games, it was the first season of The Walking Dead, Telltale's Walking Dead, and there was a bunch of us, some friends of Josh and I, and we played it, and we went through the whole season. And when that ended and it came to the finale,
you're all crying, weren't you?
It was just man tears all over the place.
It was gut wrenching.
Gut wrenching.
The game,
we played that game from so the final series, right? We played through like episodes 4 and 5 at the same time that night because we had gone through it with somebody else to do episode 4 so they could catch up. And so we finished the last episode at like 4 or 5 in the morning when we drove home, and we were just like, my friend and I just didn't talk at all the whole ride home, and then we just went to bed, and then we woke up the next day and we're like, dude, that was like the most emotionally connected to something more than like any person I had dated up to that point or anything like that. Like I felt almost a soul connection to the main character, whose name I subsequently forgot now.
Lee.
Not
Lee.
that connected.
Right. I mean, yeah, not anymore. But that's because I met my wife, so I traded Lee for my wife. So what I'm kind of interested in what this means. The series will feature a, quote, non-photorealistic interpretation of the universe to deliver a more seamless living comic book art direction. What does that mean?
It's gonna look more like comic art instead of trying to look realistic. So when you play probably what they're really addressing is they're wanting to make sure
I
up
didn't know
front
any
that
Telltale
nobody's
games did that. I didn't know any Telltale games tried to look realistic. I thought they were all comic book-y.
Well, my guess is what they're doing is they're doing PR here that the most recent Batman game looks very wonderful, right?
Yeah, the graphics are just killer on it.
Right, and so
okay.
they're probably not wanting
Prepping
people to
people.
expect those graphics.
Okay, so they're just getting out in front of like
Yeah.
the
This
natural
looks terrible.
critique. Okay, no, that's
I
pretty
sure
smart on
hope
their
though
part.
that it's a Batman version of The Wolf Among Us graphically, because The Wolf Among Us had such great art direction.
It
Yeah,
was
Wolf,
good.
Wolf Among Us looked really cool.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Did you play it?
No.
Oh, you missed
Are
out.
all the other? I
That's
guess
a really good
Borderlands
That's
is
my
not
favorite
comic.
one.
All the other Telltale games based off of comic book.
No, they're based on licenses for the most part.
Okay.
But The Walking
Game of Thrones
Dead
is a
takes
comic
place in the same universe, the same world as The Walking Dead, but it's not. It's different characters. It's a different part of America. The Game of Thrones takes place between like seasons 4 and 5, I think.
But those are based on books, right?
Well, I don't know
I
enough
think
about
this
Game of
one's
Thrones.
based on the TV show.
Yeah, Game of Thrones is a book, but I think it was their own story.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they
Right.
added.
So you can use these characters and names and do whatever you want with
I think it was a family house that's mentioned in the main story,
Yeah.
but never detailed or gotten.
So what about the Batman game? Is that going to be? It's going to be Batman, but is it going to be based on actual comic books that were released?
It says
Like the
Telltale is
stories?
not extending the series' initial coverage to Robin at Nightwing or key secondary characters in the Batman series. Or some key characters will be included: Alfred, James Gordon, Vicky Vale, and Renee Montoya.
It's probably gonna be a unique story.
Yeah, so it's
whatever they want to
They're
do, I
keeping a lid. It says on any information regarding the series' potential villains, potential villain until the summertime, and it's going to be rated mature.
Oh yeah,
17 plus. So that's pretty interesting.
Telltale's good at those mature stories.
And so that's a pretty good one. So next in our tech minute, our tech 10 minutes here, also from IGN.com, 9.7 inch iPad Pro, son.
For how much money?
Starting at 600. Starting at 600.
Yeah.
So
for 16 gigabytes.
no, they did away with the 16 gigabyte
Oh,
now.
gosh.
Now they got a whole 17.
It's
Yeah.
just the operating system and nothing else.
Yeah, no, it's
Now they're
20.
32
It's
gigs.
24 gigs. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's 32 probably, right?
Yeah,
Probably.
so 32 gigabyte Wi-Fi only model, and for a higher, currently unknown price, people can get the 128 gig, which has Wi-Fi and LTE capability.
So what is the? Tell
So
me
it's
the,
basically just a giant phone to glue to your ear and walk
what are
around.
the
and look
iPad
like a
sizes
tool.
now?
Oh, I have no idea. I
It
just
seems
have.
like 32 gigs is becoming
I mean
obsolete.
screen size.
Seems like
What's that?
64 gigs ought
For
to
sure.
be the minimum
Bare
nowadays.
minimum. There's already an iPad Pro out there, right? It's like 10 inches or 10 point.
Yeah, so the base level 12.9 inch iPad Pro that
12.9.
only has Wi-Fi is still $200 more at $800, whereas the 128 gigabyte with Wi-Fi and 128 gigabyte with Wi-Fi and cellular are $949 and $1,079 respectively. Dude, I would just get a new if I was that much into Apple, which I think it's okay. My Apple Watch just went off. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. I would just go get a new MacBook for that. I just don't because like these are so. This is the new MacBook Pro, and this is like the middle of the road MacBook Pro, and it's light. It's not difficult to maneuver. It fits basically anywhere I want it to, and it's better than an iPad. Like I just don't.
Apple is in a bad iteration cycle right now where instead of creating something that's new and exciting, they're just iterating on what they've done. And what they've done, there's an argument to be made that they're good for certain people. I'm not trying to down Apple, not this time. But they really need to produce something on that Steve Jobs would put out
Like a
if he was
car.
still alive. Right?
Like a car.
Apple car.
Apple car. They're going to make that.
'Cause-
And I agree with you 100%. I think that when even the iPhone, whatever the, where they've been going in the past,
6S right now.
since iPhone 5, I know that they've gotten bigger, but they're just
The
haven't done
5C
anything
was
huge.
so stupid.
Just as far as features and as far as like
Yeah.
what they can do and as far as like changing the game, this changes everything, kind of
Right.
Steve Jobs type of thing, that they're not really doing that much anymore. And I
Here-
think for the iPad Pro, I've read some reviews, and some people call it a laptop killer, and some people call it a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on. It's a laptop killer if all you do on your laptop is watch Netflix, but
Yeah.
it's not a laptop killer if you use your laptop to do.
Well, not like the
anything.
Surface Pro.
If you want to play Steam games.
The Surface
Yeah,
Pro
or
has the full
email.
Windows operating system,
Right.
and you can run Microsoft Office on it. And
Correct. Tons of tons of Windows.
Here's what I
programs.
think. Here's what I would really want to exist, and I'm surprised it doesn't already exist. It seems like we're on the cusp of it, but nobody's jumping, and it seems like something Apple could do to really jump out ahead again, which is
So if you're listening, Apple, take notes.
I want a phone in which every service I pay for, like cable television or DirecTV or whatever you got, internet service, everything runs directly through the phone and goes with me wherever I go. And so when I go home, like
Your kids are like, Dad's home. Good. Finally, we can watch TV again.
well, yeah. Well, so when I go home, like my cables, wherever I go, my cable service goes with me and will connect to whatever television I'm near to.
You have that in some app form for some
Or
stuff.
or same things with like Wi-Fi. Obviously, you can pay to have your phone be a hotspot, but it's always complicated. It's always a mess. They always throttle it. It's no good right now using your phone as a hotspot.
Right.
Not permanently. Like for like 10 minutes, it's good, but not as like a permanent
Yeah,
solution. I want something where like the phone can be a permanent solution to every service I put my name on,
That's why you should just jailbreak your phone. Because life becomes way easier.
or
after that.
use Android products.
No, that's a good point. I think that the only issue with that is that people who are at your home, like your family, will also need all of their own so that they can continue to use those services when you're not there.
Well, yeah. Well, what you do is you get something like able to like have 3 apps, right? So you're paying for like a 3-app service. So there's 3
Like a bundle?
phones with an app each, or something like that.
Right.
I'm just still trying to figure out what tech problem that the iPad solves. It seems like a really cool thing that
the
doesn't.
new iPad or
Wanting
Just
to lay
use
down
iPad
on
in
your
general.
couch.
I mean, just the iPad in general. Like, when the iPad came
tablets
out,
in general, really.
yeah, because
It's all about
to me-
interface.
but to me, they just like were an awesome answer to a question nobody was asking, and I just
They've been really handy. They've changed the way a lot of people do business.
Yeah, and even
Yeah.
music, and even I saw somebody with this Mackie portable system where the iPad docked into it, and there were no what do you call these little sliders and things like that. It was all on the iPad, and he picked it up and he walked to the back of the room to check the sound, and he's making adjustments
Okay.
while his
So,
portable
fair enough.
soundboard
They're versatile.
is up front still.
agile, mobile.
And he could also use his iPhone to do that as well.
I don't know,
I
I
had
mean-
the program on my iPhone, but then I went Droid, and it's not available for that. It's like the one program I lost.
So I mean, the argument I'd make is, I think its first appeal was it allowed you to do that thing where you really wanted to lay on your bed or your couch and be able to use your
A computer, but
your
not have a computer.
and not have a laptop resting on your chest
You
or
could
something
surf
like
and
that.
squat.
You know, but that there's being a person who's always been a techie, always had a lot of computer devices in his life that happily got smaller as I got older because technology got better. But when I was in high school and I had a computer in my room that was a really big tower and a big monitor,
Noisy fans.
yeah, noisy fans. I really wanted to be
LED
able to
lights in
just
there.
lay on my bed and just like play around with a computer device, but I couldn't take that monitor with me, right?
Good
And-
night monitor.
or have a keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
This
Would you do that again?
doesn't perfectly
Do
solve
again.
that.
Do the keyboard mouse thing again.
It's like I'm playing the bass, but
Backwards.
All that matters is it gets us one step closer to Star Trek.
That's true.
What they need to do is just make this thing come off right here.
It already looks better
There's your
than Star
iPad.
Trek.
That's
know?
the Surface.
Right,
Or the Surface. When they came out with the Surface
Yeah,
Book
that one
or
that,
whatever,
like, just
Yeah.
where it
connects.
splits in half.
Yeah, and tons of Apple and not Apple, Windows and Android devices do that. But Apple needs to stop trying to sell you this and $1,000 tablet. It should just be able to.
I just $1,000. That's look.
Yeah,
I-
iPads are fun. They're handy peripherals.
I
You can do
have-
a lot of cool stuff with them, but at $1,000,
You
man.
could
Yeah.
you could buy all of that stuff that you have right there for $1,000.
No, you actually couldn't.
No, I mean a lot of that stuff for
You're-
$1,000. I just think look.
You're paying for the screen and for the density of the chipset,
And
But-
it is a darn good touchscreen still.
and also for the form factor that they're just trying to sell you on the cool. I'd say at least 30% of that cost is cool factor.
Dude,
it's to be the person with that
I
device.
am sold out on the cool factor Apple. Everything in my life is Apple related. Watch, phone, computer. Would not in a million years pay $1,000. If somebody wanted to get it for me as a present, babe, for my birthday, that would be rad. Just use your own money.
I was gonna say.
Don't. Maybe mom. Mom, that would be a cool present. Or brother, John, looking at you. But I couldn't.
Use some of them school loans.
I just couldn't do it. I just could not. Okay. And probably the most important thing that we'll talk about today is the lead taints drinking water in hundreds of schools and daycares across the USA. So lead being like the lead like you find in paint or things like that is being found in our drinking water. It's a great Tommy Boy reference. Tommy Boy, did you eat paint chips as a child? No?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we're right there with you.
Hate you guys.
That's Herbie Hancock.
So, just here's some just thoughts, and okay. So we're all aware of like the Flint, Michigan thing. Flint's mayor went on TV and like Flint's like Good Morning America or whatever their local crappy thing is, and they were like, "Is the water in Flint, Michigan bad?" And he goes, "Nope, not at all," and takes a drink of the Flint, Michigan water.
At what point is this the very beginning of the?
Yeah, when the crisis was starting to pick up steam, and all the while already knowing that there was lead in the water that he was drinking. Okay, this came out as a proven thing that he was aware ahead of time. So he ingested poisonous lead rather than just admit that there was a problem. I don't understand who does that.
Politicians.
It's just,
Of course, in that water was like Evian or something.
it's just smart water. I just don't get. Okay, so a school, Caroline Elementary in Ithaca, New York, is one of hundreds across the nation where children were exposed to water containing excessive amounts of an element doctors agree is unsafe at any level. Okay, any level. So a sample at a Maine elementary school, 41 times higher. Pennsylvania preschool, 14 times higher. A sink in a music room at the bathroom at Caroline Elementary tested this year at 5,000 ppb of lead. Results released by the school system. That's a cutoff. That's the cutoff where EPA labels a substance as hazardous waste.
Whoa.
I just don't understand. I don't understand how this works. Is it because our plumbing and our pipe stuff is old and we don't spend the money on
industrial
infrastructure?
Waste. It's industrial waste.
Okay, so does
It's
this have to
pollution.
do with your like farm to table stuff
It's
that you're gonna try and
heavy
sell me on
metals
right now?
come from
Jug.
From old men with long hair.
heavy metals come from different processes in industrial production of paper and
Industrial rock, garage rock.
and so they're getting into the waterways probably because of poor containment methods of various companies and industries that are creating stuff around these waterways. Farmlands for sure.
So what do
probably
we do? How do we?
Also, like I can't speak to the specific story happening in Ithaca, but having seen similar things local to where I am, part of it comes from the complication of, we perceive like the piping, let's say in our local area, to be like government piping, right? So the government should take care of it, but the government really is like leasing or allowing private companies on their behalf to take care of these things. That allows there to be this buffer of whose responsibility is it really, and both can blame the other side, and it can come to a standstill
Where nobody does anything.
Right, exactly, and that's kind of part of the problem with the way our infrastructure works when it comes to things like water and electricity. That there's this weird balance/imbalance between private companies and government regulation.
Right. And the problem is when money trades hands, when we'll let this company come and either build a factory or take care of our water issues. All these contracts are signed and said and agreed upon, and then a year later they find out that it doesn't work. No one does anything.
Yeah,
and then for years and years and years, it just gets worse.
Yeah. Who remembers the Southern California rolling brownouts? Remember that when every district had to take a turn
when we were trying to get Jerry Brown kicked out of office?
No.
Okay.
When the electricity would go low, it wouldn't be turned off, but it'd go very low.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, it came out that there was no actual electrical need, that there was no reason for any of this. The whole thing
It was just scheduled, so they did it anyways.
No, the whole thing was designed to make it seem like we have an electrical problem, so they could charge more for the electricity. Period. That was it. There was just designed
terrible. What's that,
to
Cuba?
create fervor.
It's all a scam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this came out 2 years later, and names were named, but I don't remember anything actually happening with it.
Anything about? I just don't. I don't get the bureaucracy, red tape, standstill.
Yeah, it's just money. It's not fancy for cities and municipalities to invest in restoring their water systems. They want to do things that make people want to.
Well, and a lot of the times the contracts go to friends, family, that sort of thing.
Right. So I don't even know what the solution is. 360 cities or whatever are failing lead tests in their water. I mean, how do you even?
There was a report.
Drink more soda.
And that's what that is what I am saying.
Bottled water companies are excited about that.
That is what
maybe they're poisoning all the water
That's right.
supplies.
Conspiracy. You heard it here first. Probably not.
Of course, there's all those bottled water companies that are just tap water.
That's correct.
Which is actually a pretty good idea.
Dasani.
That's how the conspiracy works.
That was Dasani. Dasani was sued and found out that they were just bottling city water.
Tap water plus salt.
And they weren't doing anything wrong because all they said it was they called it filtered water, and they had filtered it through
through a Brita filter
through a stainless steel screen just to make sure rats didn't fall in and stuff. It's filtered.
Limited number
Coffee
of
filter
rats.
probably pretty good.
So, I'm just really, it's super disheartening, just to think that nobody really cares.
Do you really care? Are you sending bottled water to anyone?
Well, no. In terms of what I'm thinking, from our governmental system regarding the understanding of saying they're supposed to be here to serve and protect and yada yada yada, but nothing's actually getting done. The fact that there could be even a hole for this to fall through because there's a standstill like that is what is crushing. I think is a good way to.
It's going to cost a lot of money to fix all of these tainted water supplies. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do.
You come into this, or at least I do. You come into this conundrum. On the one hand, my gut reaction is, I want the government to punish these people, punish this company for doing this. And then I think, wait, do I want a government that punishes companies for being bad companies? What sort of government does that become? And what sort of dangers does that create
Or the government
in the future?
becomes the moral arbiter of good and bad?
Yeah, of the free market, obviously this isn't the free market necessarily when we're talking about water, right? Because it's not a free market in that case, piped water. But if the government sort of goes after any companies, it goes after all companies. Then there's always a far-reaching effect.
Yeah, but I would assume that many laws were probably broken, as well as tons of government guidelines, right? Where I'm sure the water is supposed to be tested every other day, and they're oh, failed again, boss. What do you want me to do? Just write in that it didn't fail. You know what I mean? So someone is responsible for breaking some type of law or guideline and let this water pass for and maybe they go after those individuals or
Well, it says here that
uphold the law in that scenario.
This article from usatoday.com, by the way, says that at this point it's impossible to know how big this problem is because the federal government, and this is specific to preschools and daycare centers there, right? So the government requires only about 10% of the nation's schools and a tiny fraction of daycares. There are 8,225 facilities that run their own water systems, and the government only requires about 10% of them to test for lead at all. So the EPA estimates that about 90,000 public schools and 500,000 child care facilities are not regulated under the Safe Drinking Water Act because they depend on water sources such as municipal utilities expected to test their own water. That means parents have no assurance lead isn't seeping into children's water from a school building's pipes.
I don't like that statement because it shouldn't be the school's job to test that
to
water.
To test their own water. That's just such an obscure thing to place on them.
The education comes
Check
with
your fish for
so many
mercury,
woes. People working in education are already giving a huge portion of their lives to try to get the primary job done. They can't be going and testing water for some company as well.
And they're hearing that many schools are actually testing the lead themselves just voluntarily. Many schools are taking the time to do that. And this is what the article is saying, is hinting at the true scope of the problem because they're just taking the extra time to do this as opposed to...
got groundskeeper Willie out there.
It's insane.
pH strips.
Just trying to figure out. I don't know, man. I just feel bad for the babies. Just for the babies and the children.
Yeah.
Unless they get you iPads.
And
do it all for the children.
It's just... Well, I mean, I am a...
You're a big softie, we know.
If Apple gets children to build its iPads, why can't you just get a bunch of children together to build you one iPad?
What are you talking about?
It works
I don't
for them.
own an
If it was a
iPad.
modular iPad, he could
I
just
own
get everyone to
three.
donate one piece. You know, like,
Actually, modular iPads would be sick.
How about iPad with any kind of expandable memory?
No, they have them. Just Apple. So Apple sells it.
Apples to apples?
Apple
Apple
sells
sells
expandable memory.
Oh yeah, so you can take your iPad and they'll pry it apart and put a new memory for it.
No, you have to buy. It's like
price.
a 200 thing extension that you have to buy that sits. It's like a.
How is this acceptable?
I mean, it's not helpful. I'm just telling you they sell it. So, do with that what you will. But stop trying to distract us from the real problem. Get lead out of our schools.
Government?
Yeah. So, I don't know. I finished this segment of the podcast today heartbroken and stoic and just not really knowing what to do with myself.
You can't be heartbroken and stoic, by the way.
The heartbreak has made me stoic because I'm so numb.
Step closer to ANCAP.
And what is that?
Anarcho-capitalism.
No, please don't put me on any governmental watch list. People watching.
Hey, we get
this
some fans,
podcast.
though.
Chris, on the other hand.
Yeah, like to keep them on their toes.
So this is nuts. I mean, this is
Bring us home,
This is a
Josh.
crazy reality. Yeah. So I will listen to the advice of one of our other faith guys. By the way, if you like the nickname Faith Guys, would you let me know that? Because I would like to keep calling us that.
I don't
but
like it.
Nobody else on the podcast.
Who are you asking?
Our fan.
The faith guys. Hey, fan.
Our fan.
So
You even faith, bro?
just trying to see if we can.
We need a shirt that says that.
Do you guys want merch? I'm waiting for an answer before I. So again,
Can't hear you.
follow us on Twitter.
Hey,
at,
fan, do you want merch?
Follow us on Twitter. I'm trying to bring it home, James. Faith the letter
Luke Rollins,
in.
would you want a T-shirt?
Whatever, Luke Rollins. I texted him the other day and told him we were giving him shout outs on the podcast. I think he's going to be mad.
He's given us our longest comment to date.
And
It was
that's true.
or an irate. Yeah, never mind.
And so, yeah, we're
Sorry.
grateful for that feedback, friend of the podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Faith and Whatever, at Josh Carmen, at TStudentLife, at James YUILE, at Marion Ranch. And you can send us emails with all of your praise or anger at faithandwhatever@gmail.com.
Any complaints you have, you can direct to Donald Trump.
I was going to say direct them to James, but one and the same. So, zing!
Wow.
Just kidding.
That's brutal.
James's hair is way better. So,
I'm not sure about that. You picked the one thing I probably can't send up to.
yeah. Well, and your hands are normal size. So, we would look forward to connecting with you there and on all the forms of social media. Instagram, Faith and Whatever, Facebook.com/Faith and Whatever, and we'll talk to you soon.
See ya.